deals with the mandate of the Department of Public Enterprises. That the Department of Public Enterprises is a department of a special kind, which is a shareholder department, but it's not a policy department like other departments. So the state-owned enterprises that we oversee also report to other departments, which are policy departments like energy, transport, defense, and the like. There we also look at the second paragraph deals with the transformational role of state enterprises in terms of their thing, that state-owned companies are crucial in driving state strategic objectives, in creating jobs and enhancing equity and transformation. So we go through that and also highlight the challenges and strategies, the post-COVID-19 strategies, plans and priorities will be included after the tabling of the new budget. So it means that the strategic plan of the department and budget will be changed as time goes. The strategic objectives of the Department of Public Enterprises. The department adopted a new strategic plan in line with the National Development Plan and the Medium-Term Strategic Framework. That is also cognizance of the internal and external environment. And obviously the strategy responds to the prevailing macroeconomic challenges that the country is facing. We also look at the SWOT analysis in terms of what could be the factors that could influence the strategic department, which is we're looking at the socio-economic, the oversight, sustainability, and then also on page 5, we're looking at the policy priorities for 2020-2021 in terms of the Department of Public Enterprises, that there are actually 7 state-owned enterprises the department is overseeing, which is Alexco, Denel, Safcor, Eskom, SAA, Express Airways, and Transnet. And we also look at the pronouncements that have been made by the President of the Republic of South Africa in the SONA on the 13th of February 2020. The highlights of the SONA have been highlighted over there. We go to page 6. The whole of page 6, it gives the commitments that have been made by the President in the SONA in relation to the Department of Public Enterprises and the state-owned companies. And then I think part of page 7 deals with the Minister of Finance's budget speech, which contextualize the global economic environment in terms of state-owned enterprises and how they will be affected. That is also highlighted at the bottom of page 7. And then we look at the furthermore, what the Minister of Finance has stated in terms of what action government will be doing to fix the state-owned enterprises within a medium-term strategic framework. We're looking at the challenges that the state-owned enterprises are facing.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes, on a point of order.
Yes.
I don't think it's proper, Chair, that the staff member must come and read the report to the members of the committee. I think that it's never done. So I'm appealing to you.
Sorry, it's never done where?
And must take us through the report, because this is your meeting as an elected and deploy a member of parliament. The staff member is not a member of parliament.
Yeah, I think I don't think you're factual on that. You assume we have been having presentations here, honourable member. We have been having presentations from all sorts of people. All what is happening here is that we're just presenting what has been drafted by the officials. It's not drafted by us. On the sorry, give us chance, because this is something that has been happening, you know. Unless you have another experience, but the understanding is that in all the meetings that we have, we always process reports in this way, and then members will engage in this report just like any other report that has been presented in the meeting of the portfolio committee.
No, Chair. I'm saying the secretary right now is reading a report that we are supposed to be voting on it. So he's not. There's never been a time where the secretary presents. It's been officials of the department or those that are delegated by the department. But right now, to be presented to by the secretary of the committee is extremely wrong, Chair. It must be you.
You insist on your wrong assumption. This is a secretary of a portfolio committee of public enterprise. It's not somebody from somewhere. Yes, this is a secretary of this committee. If he is a secretary of this, he has a responsibility to present a report in this committee, especially if it's our report, because this is our report that we have to adopt or reject.
Chair, this is the report. It's not the minutes of the meeting.
No, it's not the minutes. The report. This report.
This is a sitting of parliament, Chairperson. You can never have in parliament a secretary reading. It doesn't happen. This portfolio committee is just an extension of parliament. So if we were in the National Assembly with all 400 members, you would never have a secretary, a staff member reading to the members of parliament. It never happens.
It's not reading, it's presenting. Presentation has been happening all over. This is presentation.
Chair, that's exactly my point, that if we were sitting in the National Assembly, would you have a staff member presenting to the members of parliament? The answer is no. So why are we having a staff member presenting to the members of parliament here in this meeting of parliament?
I'm just avoiding here a dialogue between myself and yourself. I would like all other members to have a voice on this before I rule. Can other members come in?
Chair.
I'm looking at the hands there.
Chair.
Who's that?
Kachalia, Chair.
Okay, come in, Honorable Kachalia.
I have no problem with being taken through the report in this manner by the Secretary. We can then debate and discuss this and provide input. You may rule on it in my view. Thank you.
Okay. Any other view? Honorable Shabalala?
Thank you, Chairperson. I support Honorable Kachalia on this one. Thank you.
Chair.
Okay, another one?
Chair.
Yes, who's that, Honorable Kumede?
That's right. But my interest is to find out from the member, what is it that she feels she may be losing if the report is presented in the fashion it does?
Let me not go there. Let me not ask her that.
I can answer, Chair. I don't have a problem.
No, you want to answer that?
Yes.
Answer.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Look, we are not a clownish people here. That question is very
No. Matua.
Any person just come and address parliament. It happens. No, Chair. We must give the respect to this institution called Parliament. We can't just be allowing everybody. That is why even when you invite people to come and speak here, you write to them so that they don't just bring anybody here. So I'm saying, if we were in the National Assembly, Chairperson, let's agree that we will never have anyone. We will never have anyone just coming to address or present to the members of Parliament if they are not invited to do so. More especially staff members. Staff member is appointed. He responded to an advert with a brown envelope saying, I hereby apply for a job. That is the reality. So we can't be presented to by people who apply for jobs here. We didn't apply to come here. Please, Chairperson.
Okay, Honorable Matwe, your
My hand is
your
up, Chair.
assessment. Sorry?
My hand is up, Mkwanazi.
Kwanazi? Okay.
Thanks, Honorable. Thanks, Honorable Chair. I hope I'm audible. I
Yes,
can't open the video because my network is not correct. Chair, I will support the two honorable members that supported the report to be presented. One, I think we need to note that the secretary is not just a member, but she's a member of the as a staff. Yes, appointed, I agree, but is also the same as the members of the department that always come and present the reports in front of us, and we discuss those reports afterwards. Secondly, I think we need Chair, you need to remind us as honorable members of this portfolio committee that this secretary who's presenting the report now, it's always presenting the report that we always adopt. For example, the report of the program of the same committee that we are sitting in. So it's nothing new and we cannot change now. So I will support the two honorable members that supported the presentation. And can you please continue, Honorable Chair? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. I will again ask the Secretary of the Public Enterprise Portfolio Committee to continue to take us through on this report, which is the report we will be engaging and adopting in this committee. Secretary, come.
Chair, before you continue, it's fine. You can rule me otherwise. It's okay, but please register our rejection. It's fine. Register our rejection. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, it's registered. It's recorded. Thank you.
And you must not intervene when I speak, when I chair. You must give me a chance to speak the same way I give you a chance to speak. Please.
I can continue, Chairperson.
The status kills the people, eh?
Order.
Yeah, let me continue, honorable members. Under normal circumstances, the presiding officers of Parliament, which is the House Chairperson, would ask what was the role of the committee secretary when issues of his responsibility were questioned in the meeting. It's important to note that the responsibility of the committee secretary is the custodian of the information of the committee, responsible for writing all the reports of the committee and the minutes of the committee. We usually call this an in-house a business of the committee because it's got to do with what the committee deliberated on and what the committee needs to report to the House. And there hasn't been any other way of doing it other than the committee secretary accounting to the committee in terms of what is it that we have done, what are we reporting to the House in terms of what we have been presented to us. That is the responsibility of the committee secretary. We also give procedural advice to the portfolio committees of Parliament. Otherwise, we don't only write minutes and reports, but we also give that procedural advice. So I'm not speaking as a member of Parliament.
Chair, on a point of order.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you ruled on this issue, so I don't know what this person is saying now. I thought you ruled and you said let's move, and I said register our disagreement. So So the secretary that you gave power to, the staff member you gave power to, should continue reading because you gave him power to do that. So what is he speaking about now? Where is it in this report?
Honorable member, there is a procedure in meetings.
You said you ruled.
Honorable member, I don't want to mute you. I don't want to mute you out of this meeting. I want you to be calm, because here you are becoming disruptive now. Because you have raised issues. You've got to raise issues. The central to the legislation that allows us to meet as a portfolio committee, we have a person by the name a secretary of a standing committee, and that particular person has rights also in the committee. I think you have to go back and read your references properly, so that you just say I must not talk when you are speaking, and you are just doing that now because it's you.
But Chairperson, you're not out of order. You see now, I'm saying to you, you ruled, and I respected your ruling. You said
exactly
yes.
I'm responding to what you said at that rule.
What is he talking about? Because he should be reading the report.
No, we're not. Don't do that to us. Don't raise issues, and when they are raised back to you, you're becoming agitated. You can't be our baby here. We can't be nursing your feelings. You can't be determined by your feelings. You are a member of a portfolio committee just like everybody else. You are not our baby that we have to nurse their feelings here. Otherwise, throw toys all over. You will throw toys all over this committee. When we call you, when we correct you, we've got a right to correct you here. Otherwise, once you do this thing again, I will have to use the powers invested in me. And I don't want to. Thank you very much. Secretary, continue with the presentation of the report. Please.
Yeah, he must go to the report. He must go to the report and read the report because we gave him power to do that. He must not tell us about the constitution or anything. He must read the report. That's what I'm saying. You rule.
This is not your committee. This is not your committee. You are a member of this committee. It's not your committee. Respect other people too. Where are you from? That's too rude. You are behaving very rude.
Chairperson, Honorable Piri, can I speak? Chair.
Honorable Piri.
Chairperson, can you allow the secretary to proceed, as he also has a mandate to advise us as members of the committee? Then he has all those powers to advise. Then if there's something wrong that he sees we are not doing it correctly, he has nothing, it is nothing wrong for him to articulate his duties and his roles. Can he proceed with what has been given to proceed with? And all of us, we must respect each other. We want to proceed with the business of the day. Thanks, Chair.
Please, I agree fully with you. Honorable Mawot, please treat us as people, as we would like you to be treated. Please behave.
But I'm appealing to you. If the matter is still open, I don't have a problem. I can continue debating it. But if you rule on the
you're not even debating. You are disruptive. You're not even debating.
I'm not disruptive. I'm saying that you ruled and you said the secretary must read the report. I respected that. Even though I don't agree, but I respected that. And I expected the secretary to move by reading the report. Now the secretary is doing other things. And now when I raise point of order there, then I'm disruptive. How am I disruptive, Chairperson? Like how? Please, you've ruled on me. I've considered. Although I asked you to register our disagreement, that's fine. Now you say the person must read the report. Can the report be read? What other things that he was talking about? That's all I'm asking. And that's not being disruptive, Chairperson. Please.
Okay. The number 3 of the report deals with the programs of the department, which are divided into 3. The first one being administration. We are on page 9 of the report. The purpose of the program is to provide the strategic leadership, management, and support services to the department. And it also deals with how much of the budget of the department is consumed by the administration over there. The department is quite a small department, with only 114 employees, but is expected to rise to 139 employees over the medium term. And then with regards to program 2, it's state-owned companies, governance, assurance, and performance. The purpose of this program is to provide state-owned companies governance, legal assurance, financial and non-financial performance monitoring, evaluation and reporting systems in support of the shareholder to ensure alignment with government priorities. We have given the different sub-units that are sub-programs within that particular unit, which is management, legal, governance, financial assessment, and investment support. It also deals on page 11, the performance of that department with regard to the expenditure and also the allocations of the budget to the department of that particular program over the medium term. 3.3 deals with program 3, which is the business enhancement, transformation, and industrialization, whose responsibility is to provide sector oversight to ensure state-owned companies contribute to the advancement of industrialization, transformation and intergovernmental relations, and international collaboration services. The program will also support the shareholder in strategically positioning and enhancing the operations of state-owned companies. We also look at the budget over the medium term for this particular program. The sector-related programs on page 12 have been divided into the energy resources, research and economic modeling, transport and defense, business enhancement services. And then in terms of compensation of employees, it constitutes only 0.2% of the program's budget over the medium term. Page 13 of the report, payments for financial assets constitute 99.6% of the program's budget. And we have detailed the allocations of the budget over the medium term for that particular program. In terms of 3.4, looks at the budget, the overall budget of the department over the medium term. The department will be focusing on strengthening its oversight capacity and ensuring that SOCs under its authority are contributing to investment in key infrastructure. And that table below there, it looks at how the budget has moved over the medium term from 2019-20 to 2022-23. There's just below that paragraph, the table on page 14. There's a narrative in terms of how the budget, whether it's increasing or decreasing over the medium term per program. At the bottom of the page there, we've got the report of the Auditor General on the annual performance plan of the Department of Public Enterprises for the 2020-2021. Obviously, the Auditor General at the time of the tabling of the annual performance plan and strategic plan had not had completed auditing the annual performance plan and of the Department of Public Enterprises and its state-owned companies. We also look at the number 5. We're looking at just a summary of the performance and challenges for facing state-owned enterprises. Number 1 being Alexco, also informed by the briefing that we had received in the last week. On page 16, we're looking at 5.2 Daniel. Also reflecting on the current challenges facing the country relating to how COVID-19 has affected all these state-owned enterprises. 5.3 deals with ESCOM. On page 17, 5.4 looks at Transnet. And 5.5 deals collectively with the aviation, which is SAA and South African Express Airways, particularly the current developments within those two companies. And with regard to 5.6, SAFCOL, I will jump directly into the observations, which are the ones that are more focused that I need to actually read out. Number 6 looks at committee observations. 6.1, the committee made the following observations. I'm not sure if members want me to read them one by one, word by word, or members have had an opportunity to look at all of them. Chairperson.
Okay. Do we go through one by one, or you already interacted with those observations up to the recommendations? Members, I'm looking at the hands, Shabalala and Kashalia.
Thanks, Chairperson. Chairperson, we have interacted with the report and the background. So I suggest that the Secretary just take us through the report, not necessarily reading line by line or bulletin, like we have it in front of us. So for reasons of time, so I really suggest that he just sift through the reports, but issues of background really we have it in front of us. So thank you.
Okay, Honorable Kashalia. Honorable Kashalia.
I'm trying to unmute.
Yeah, you are audible now.
Oh, okay. It says I'm muted, but you can hear me.
Yes.
Chair, I think in terms of the report, the observations and recommendations we've received, and everybody should have read at least that. If they haven't read that, they're not going to be any wiser by someone taking them through it in some general way. So I suggest that we take the and then the Secretary can take us through it. Otherwise, we take it as read and we move ahead, and then we comment on the recommendations and the observations.
Okay. Any other member want to say something? I think the two honorable members are in agreement. Then, honorable members, that is the report. And we do have the committee observation, which is 0.6, and it ends at page 19 at 6.1.14. And then we've got a recommendation that starts at 7.1 up to 7.18. Can the members engage on that, honorable members? Can I see the indication of hands? That is Honorable Kashalia, number 1. Or honorable members, can I assume everybody wants to speak so that we don't have a
Shabalala,
Yes, Chairperson.
I thought you were going to
Chairperson?
respond on that.
Yes,
Do you
Chairperson.
think that I just allow everybody to speak, or you and the Kashale boys are the only hands that are here?
Chairperson, am I audible? Okay.
Yes.
No, Chair, on the recommendations, unlike the observation, I was going to suggest that this is where perhaps the Secretary needs to read a per observation. We need to agree to that observation or to that recommendation. So in that way, it saves us time, but on the recommendation, because recommendations, then we don't have to go back to it for discussions. So he can just read through. If comrades wants to omit, they can do that in that way, because these are recommendations, so we need to go through them one by one. Thank you, Chair.
And if that is the case, I will need a second, because I thought you are in agreement with Honorable Kashalia. Honorable Kashalia was saying we can just assume that everybody read. Then there is any
Second,
okay. Come, Secretary, continue.
Must read.
Yeah, just read the recommendation from 1 to 18.
Okay. Recommendations. The committee recommended that the Minister of Public Enterprises should, within the 2020-2021 financial year, ensure that the Department of Public Enterprises advise the committee on the establishment and operationalization of the Presidential SOE Coordinating Council, including the work the Council will be doing in the implementation of the recommendations of the 2014 report of the Presidential Review Commission on SOCs. Some of the recommendations were that government should develop a shareholder management bill, the shareholder model, the SOE remuneration standards, etc., to empower the government in oversight of its state-owned enterprises. Consider introducing a comprehensive plan to expand the corporate social investment of state-owned companies to rural parts of the country. Develop a communication strategy for all state-owned companies in order to promote the companies and educate and inform the public and rural communities about the work of state-owned companies and opportunities that they offer. Consider working with the Department of Trade and Industry and National Treasury in addressing localization strategies. These should include resetting of trade and investment corporations to stimulate and support small businesses and employment opportunities, initiatives, reduce barriers to trade in services which are often labor intensive, and investments in industrial value chains. Prioritize development of programs with SOC aimed at equipping young people with appropriate skills for the economy to address youth unemployment. Provide the committee with shareholder compacts on an annual basis and quarterly reports on how the companies are performing in achieving targets. Ensure SOCs accelerate investment and procurement programs. Promote industrialization and support small and medium enterprises that are owned by women, youth, and people with disabilities. Ensure that SOCs find a balance between advancing the commercial and development and the public mandates. They should not over-concentrate on commercial mandate while neglecting the developmental mandate of transforming the economy and improving the quality of life of South Africans. Ensuring competent executive and board appointments at SOCs through conducting of security clearance, integrity checks, and lifestyle audits. Ensure that the department collaborates with the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform in addressing long outstanding issues relating to the SAFCO land claims, and that regular progress reports at least twice a year to the committee. Ensure that issues relating to the going concern of South African Airways and South African Express Airways are resolved. The department and the Department of Transport need to ensure that a whole of state aviation strategy or policy that can enable the sustainability of national carrier is developed. Work with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Rural Development and Land Reform to ensure that the Richtersveld Mining Corp Company and the Communal Property Association are properly constituted to facilitate the successful implementation of the deeds of settlement and delivery of socio-economic development programs to the beneficiaries. Address the financial and governance issues facing the state-owned companies within the department's portfolio and provide regular feedback to the committee. Work with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and other relevant parties to resolve the municipal debt owed to ESCOM and provide feedback to the committee on this process quarterly. Ensure that all vacancies are permanently filled within the Department of Public Enterprises by the end of the financial year. Develop post-COVID-19 strategies, plans and actions and include them in their budget, plans and SOC shareholder compacts. The department should report every second quarter of to the committee on progress being made. And then number 8 is the conclusion. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members. I think we got it now. All I'm expecting is to get hands. Indication, Honorable Kashalia, you number 1. I want to note hands, but seemingly they are not there. Okay, continue, Honorable Kashalia.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of comments on the recommendations and the observations. I will go through them in seriatim, starting with the recommendations and where the observations fit into the recommendations and have not been addressed by the recommendations. I'm happy to email these to the secretary later on if so required. Now, with respect to the observations and recommendations, on 7.1 of the recommendations, the Presidential State-Owned Enterprises Coordination Council must make transparent its mandate, its composition, reach, scope, applicability, governance, and accountability for any decisions that may further imperil the bottom line position of the SOCs. 7.3 of the recommendations, communications, which refers to communication strategies, these should go beyond communicating opportunities, most of which do not exist because of the parlous state of the SOCs, but they should address transparency in terms of the taxpayer's right to be apprised of the use and misuse of tax monies. 7.6 of the recommendations, which should provide the committee with shareholder compacts on an annual basis and quarterly reports on how the companies are doing. This is absolutely crucial. But additionally, we must hold the Deputy Minister to his word on the provision of shareholder compacts. He gave this to the committee at its last meeting, and we require delivery on this. In terms of 7.7 and 8 of the recommendations, the committee should note the need to minimize the demands made on the fiscus and prioritize accordingly in terms of the investment and procurement programs, given the dire state of the SOEs and their role in driving South Africa Incorporated to the edge of a fiscal cliff. The recommendation that they should not over-concentrate on the commercial mandate while neglecting the developmental mandate of transforming the economy and improving the quality of lives, I think is irresponsible. These objectives can only be made by a capable state, not an insolvent one, and accordingly financial sustainability should be paramount. In line with observation 6.13 of the committee, which speaks to the creation of more black industrialists and the need to focus on localization, it is recommended by the DA that the full disclosure of past efforts in this regard, with full disclosure of recipients, evaluation of financial success and failures, and the right to re-evaluate recipients and efficacy going forward. Similarly, localization needs to be constantly monitored to ensure compliance with competitiveness, non-distortion of markets, sustainability, cost to consumers, and transparency of contracts to obviate a repetition of past mistakes. For example, that we had with the locomotives. Continue. In line with observation 615 concerning SOCs not declaring dividends to the state and not contributing to the fiscus, the question is what measures have been put into place to rectify this. By comparison, the private sector is governed by risk and reward and funding covenants to not feed good money after bad. In terms of observation 6110 on how to address inadequate risk assessment tools used by the government, a recommendation requiring the reworking of risk assessment tools is needed. 7.9 of the recommendations in terms of ensuring competent executive and board appointments at SOCs through conduct of security clearances, integrity checks, and lifestyle ordinances. Yes, absolutely. But the recommendation should move further to require implementation by an agreed upon date. 7.12 of the recommendations, the Department of Transport needs to ensure that the whole state aviation strategy policy can enable the sustainability of national carriers, and that is developed. This, with respect, is a pipe dream given the history of mismanagement and bailouts totaling multiple scores of billions of rands. In addition to the parlous state of the global aviation industry, that must be taken into account, and the state market failure compounded by dire global prospects in the near future must make way for sale, partnerships, and privatization if so required. 7.13 of the recommendations, facilitation of the successful implementation of the deed of settlement and delivery of socio-economic development programs to the beneficiaries of the Richtersveld community are certainly required. But the point must be made that the benefit of the community will derive from this that's wholly dependent on an effective, solvent, and profitable mining company, which will act as a motor for development. In view of Alexcor's insolvency and significant government issues and gross irregularities, sale of the company should be recommended, in absence of which the community will continue to be disadvantaged. 7.14 of the recommendations, more than addressing financial governance issues facing the state-owned companies within the department's portfolio and the provision of regular feedback to the committee, full transparency on government and financial issues to the committee is to be recommended. In line with this, it's recommended that the annual financial statements are to be tabled within the prescribed period, and in the event of failure to table these, a final period should be prescribed, after which sanctions should apply. In line with observation 612 of the committee, more than noting the weakening of the SOCs by corruption, we need to note that this is unlikely to be ongoing, as we have no transparency on existing contracts, the terms, potential conflicts, recipients, and costs. Full disclosure here is required. In terms of observation 614, which deals with job creation incentives, SOEs, without exception, have bloated workforces at all levels, when the creation of jobs is being by fiat and in more than fair measure, without regard at senior executive level for sectorial competence. There therefore needs to be a recommendation in line with this that calls for appropriate rationalization. A correction is in order in terms of observation 614 with regard to assistance from development financial institutions. The DBSA, for example, does provide funding to non-revenue generation of public goods on terms where full or partial cost delivery is possible. So that needs to be amended. In terms of observation 6.1.12, regarding the absence of remuneration standards for executives and boards of state-owned companies, the committee should recommend that these are to be put in place forthwith. In conclusion, the Democratic Party requests permission to formulate a minority report for attachment to this committee, and we will reserve our rights in terms of voting. As I said, I'm happy to email these notes, as they've been voluminous, to the Secretary, and to follow them up with a minority report which will include these inputs. I thank you, Chair.
I hope you will be in a position to send that also to the secretary, those recommendations, those amendments you are bringing. Honorable.
I will do so very shortly.
Okay. Honorable Gumede.
Yes, sir.
Yes. That's
Chair.
your chance.
Firstly, Chair, let me say I would love to kind of query the process or the procedure. We are today to adopt the recommendations that we have. However, there is a voluminous, as he puts it, a kind of contribution which are adding to the recommendations that we have. Now, in terms of procedure, as you allow him to forward those to the secretary, then what will be the status of the today's recommendations? But he also covers me because he says, as the DA, he is not partaking in terms of voting for the recommendations that we have. So in fact, it does address the fact that he is out and we pass the recommendations. I'm not sure then what are we going to do with the submissions that he is going to do. Perhaps the secretary of the committee will then look at it and then we be fed, because it has to be given to us for us to look through. In fact, it will necessitate a kind of the heads together in order those to go through, because it can't just go through because it's given to the secretary. It must be understood that the fact that it goes to the secretary does not mean that all what he has presented is all accepted. That's one. Two, Chair, I'm happy that the department, in fact, the whole portfolio is beginning to open its wings. You know, you look at the composition of these recommendations, it's trying to capture, if it's not touching all the corners. There is no other way, understanding the circumstances under which all these SOEs are operating. Better to resolve today and take the right decision and make sure that at least there is something, we've got a Bible before us that we can, in fact, judge our department against. I'll be happy that today we finalized that we resolved on the recommendations that we have before us. Some of the things that Honorable Kachalia raised, in fact, they've just been condensed and be put under bills or policies. For instance, when he spoke about the dividends, that's being addressed by the shareholder bill. You remember that that's why the department is emphasizing that we in fact make sure that this time around we want to pass that bill so that it exercises its role. That will be part of monitoring that dividends that are due to the fiscals or to the department, in fact, are put forward. So, Chair, let me stop there for now and say I'm fine for now. I'm ready to vote for these recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Gumede. Any other hand? I don't know why I don't see.
I've raised my hand.
Who's that? Shabalala?
Yes, please.
I don't know why I don't see you here. Okay, come in.
All right. Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Firstly, let me start by perhaps indicating, of course, the reasons why you would have recommendations. Of course, you need to align them with the observations. Now, Comrade Kachalia cites recommendations that he feels that there's been observations on.
Honorable Kashalia.
Oh, sorry, my Honorable Kachalia. So he cites recommendations on observations from his point of view. Now, I have a kind of, not a problem necessarily, but something contrary rather, on specifically, Chairperson, one, the process and procedure. I think, look, it's important and it's within Honorable Kachalia, for him to make submissions in the portfolio committee, of course, in the recommendations. But the part of submitting a document of that nature separately to the Chairperson's office, I'm opposed to it. And secondly, Chairperson, the recommendations Honorable Kachalia makes around annual fiscal statement. And he says that they need to have submission period that we must state. And he further says there must be sanctions that should apply. Now, on that point, when it comes to the rules and governing how executive submits reports to Parliament, especially annual performance plans, strategic plans, yes, they are submitted to the Speaker's office. However, the leader of government business is the one where the Speaker will interact with in the event where certain departments are failing to submit those type of reports. So I don't feel it's within our scope as Parliament to really come in and give sanctions to the failure as such, because we don't interact with it. It's only through the Speaker's office where the executive will write to the Speaker and explain their reasons why they have failed to submit. So I'm opposed to that. Secondly, he speaks about a minority report. I don't remember having in any Parliament where we have something that is called a minority report that he wants to subject and submit to your office, Chairperson. So on this and points that are phrased, Chairperson, I feel at this point the recommendations rightfully are covered within the observations that we've made in these instances. And I can safely say, Chairperson, on the observation, I cannot reiterate the observation that speaks about the last point, that the department should report every second quarter to the committee on progress made insofar as all these observations that we've been made. That has said, Chairperson, I would really like to move for the adoption of this report as cited from the recommendations and the observations that have been made as is, Chairperson. I thank you.
I'm still looking at other hands. Is there any other hand? Was that SG spoken? MT, I think it's Shabalala. I'm still trying to get other hand. I don't see any other hand. Yeah. Oh, can you correct it again? What is this? Okay. EFF.
Chair,
I've noted you. I've seen you, Honorable Kasharia. I want people who will be speaking for the first time. ACDP, IFP. Okay, let me go back to Mkwanazi. I see Mkwanazi coming in. Honorable Mkwanazi. Honorable Mkwanazi.
Thanks, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, now I can hear you now.
Unfortunately, I can't open my video because of the network problem.
Okay.
Honorable Chair, I want to support. I want to support the recommendations as it is, on the basis that the explanation was given I think, by Honorable Gumede, at first explaining the position and explaining also the position from Honorable Kashada. Secondly, Chair, in my seconding the recommendations as it is, I think Honorable Shabalala has cleared up the procedure of these reports. But Chair, I will also want to support Honorable Shabalala of not being comfortable with the submission, separate submission by Honorable Kashada. I think if Honorable Kashada is not comfortable with the recommendation or not supporting the recommendation, he can just record not supporting the recommendation or abstain or whatever. But submitting the separate report, I will strongly support Honorable Shabalala on that. On that note, Chair, I want to support the recommendations as presented. Thank you.
Okay. Any other person before?
Seconded, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. No other hand, honorable members, except before I just want to put something into context. The submission I was referring to of Honorable Kashalia. Honorable Kashalia, I'm not expecting him to submit a report of his party in relation to this issue, but the issues that he has raised here, because he's raised a long list of issues. Those issues, by and large, I was listening carefully to him, are not contradictory to what we're saying. But there are issues that, of course, that Honorable Shabalala referred to, that are in principle in conflict with what is depicted in the report. But anyway, we would like every party to say something, and those views that are of a minority will be recorded, just for the sake of records. It's not necessarily going to be interfered with the outcomes of the portfolio committee, which is, if the committee agreed to adopt, as I'm listening now, majority of you already move for the adoption of the report, then it's not going to be an issue. We're not going to change issues based on one party's recommendation. In fact, if they conflict with the issues raised. That's what I was saying. He must bring that so that we are in a position to know where he differed with on records. I don't know whether the members understand me properly on that one. Is there any second? I had the Honorable Gumede move for the adoption of the report. Honorable Kashalia, I see your hand.
Chair, just prior to that, may I just say that for simple clarification is that I made a number of inputs based on the observations and the impact on the recommendations. As I said in your remark, they were voluminous, and I subsequently offered to share these for understanding and for the record with the secretary to send to members. I have done so. Whether this is done or not is out of my hands. It's entirely in your hands. However, if it is now moved to accept the report as is, without going through in detail or understanding of what I have suggested in terms of our position, and I've sent that for clarification and edification to the secretary, then I'm saying that will reflect the position of the committee, but not our position. As a result, I'm thankful that you said there will be a recordal of the objections of other parties, and in this case the DA. In order to record those objections, you as chair would require the rationale for our objections, and I will put that together in a document which I will send to you Whether you include this in as a minority report or as a report tabulating objections, it is at your discretion. However, minority reports of this nature in previous parliaments, long before my time, were accepted. They were not accepted in recent parliaments. And that, I believe, is a dereliction of democratic duty. And I wish to crave your indulgence to ensure that this is done. The report will be passed by the majority of people on the committee. All I am trying to do is to have a clear record of our objections under whatever name that report is made. I thank you.
Thank you. No, it's fine. Honorable Busiso, sorry, Honorable Gumede, is you who's putting a hand up, or Mkwanas?
Yes, Chair, we're both of us. Both of us.
Honorable Gumede, Kwanas is you?
Chairperson, Honorable Komani.
Oh, Komani, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, colleagues. Having said and heard what the Chairperson has said, that nothing would change given the majority of members are going and supporting the report. I wish the committee should record the objection of the EFF. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Gumede?
No. Chair, I think let's be honest.
Noted, the Honorable Maoto.
Chair, let's be honest. Honorable Kachalia, long before we could embark ourselves on a decision whether we support the recommendations or we don't, he made it clear that he won't be party to that, which then allows us to take a decision on the recommendations that are before us. So now that we have agreed, in fact, I'm running short of metrics here, because what is going to submit, in fact, it falls part of the narrative minutes that says, well, I'm not sure it is not even correct to say DA, because when we are in the committee, all of us were in the committee. In fact, it will be Honorable Kachalia that in fact submitted the items. They've got nothing to do with the passing of the report and whatever. He may come back and say he is objecting and whatever, but anyway, that is his prerogative to do that. But all what we are saying, the report is done, recommendation has been accepted, recommendation have been proposed and seconded, so we move with the reports. All what he intends doing will be part of the minutes. When we read the minutes, that there was something that Honorable Kachalia raised, which in fact are not going to affect the proceedings of the recommendations that we have. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, honorable members, let's not waste our energy on an issue that is not we are, of course, a committee here. A person raise an issue, if it's not supported, that issue obviously is falling aside. Now, all what I'm saying is that just like the EFF did, somebody raise an issue if it doesn't feel comfortable, and then we will be, of course, registering that the EFF objects, you know, and then yes, let's not the report, if I'm listening carefully so far, has been a recommendation has been accepted with the agreement. Somebody also with support. There was another person who supported it. I don't know whether it was Honorable Kwanasi. I'm looking at another person who doesn't have
who doesn't agree with that particular position, so that we put this aside. Honorable Maotwe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Look, I'm gonna have to. I thought that there were discussions, and then we'll come to whether we're adopting the report or not. But I see that the members have jumped already into suggesting that because a lot of people spoke, therefore they support. So let me, as the Commissar said, the Honourable Member Komane said, we object, but I want to give reasons why we object to this, we reject this report. If you look at the background, Chair, is talking about the support of the wider economy and marginal business sectors and support of the economic recovery where needed. Even during the presentation by the department when they were here last week or 2 weeks back, it was very clear that there's no intentions of them contributing anything to the economy. So we cannot therefore be saying that they support the wider performance. And then I'm going to move to the mandate. It says here that the mandate is crucial into driving the state's strategic objectives of creating jobs. That can't be the reality because it's Transnet, people are being given VSPs. It's ESCOM, it's laying off people. It's SAA is closing down. It's SA Express, but employees who've been working since March without salary. So this can't be the true reflection of what is happening on the ground. If you look at the strategic objectives of the department as well, once again, when the department was here, they wanted to make a link between the NDP and the department's strategic objectives and that one of the different SOEs. And coming strongly from the NDP was the industrialization, which when you went to the department itself, it spoke about nothing. We even referred to the content of the report itself by the Deputy Minister and the DG, and we strongly raised concerns to say if you are going to want to use the SOEs to drive industrialization, you can't therefore be referring us to the content of this document. And just to illustrate that there's no alignment between what we are saying here and what they presented. On the mandate, it says that the department is not directly implementing or executing the programs. Yet when they were here last week, they presented that they oversee the implementation of the programs. So clearly, there's a contradiction there. And if you go to the policy priorities, it's talking about divisionalizing ESCOM. We came up very strongly again and saying, do not divisionalize ESCOM. Because what we want to do, we want to prioritize those divisions. And it's here on the report that we want to agree to divisionalization of ESCOM. We will never agree to such. And it talks about, if you go to 5.5, Chairperson, it says that the SAA BRP is supposed to submit the rescue plan by the end of May. Colleagues, today is the 2nd of June. So what are we saying? The statement can't end at saying they're submitting the BRP plan by end of May. It's not submitted. So what then does it mean? And then after the comma, it leaves the SAA rescue plan. It talks about this SA Express, which is got nothing to do with the first statement, what the first statement was saying. So, and then the last one, Chair, is on closing. The strategic impact overview of the department is not documented here. There's no correlation between this report and the strategic impact overview of the department. So there's a serious confusion between these two documents. They are not in any way mirroring each other. And Chairperson, therefore, it is against that background that we say these recommendations are not going to help us any way in fulfilling the mandate of the department, and therefore we strongly reject this report. I thank you.
Okay. Honorable members, I think the fact is that the report has been adopted. we are supposed to move now towards the end of the meeting, if I am properly hearing the process. But if there is anyone else who wants to come in, I think I can give in the few minutes that is left, Honorable, who is JM? Okay, George Kwanazi, you are reflected your hand up here. Kwanazi, okay. Sibusiso Kumede, Honorable Kumede.
Chair, can you hear me?
I hear you now.
No, Chair, perhaps for now it is appropriate that the meeting be closed. I'm listening carefully to Honorable Matwe, and she seems to have her facts wrong, right? So in a sense, it's a debate of deliberately confusing the situation and allow yourself not to accept the report that's before us. So if that is the situation, you will obviously expect, Chair, that if we may say we talk about them as a party, they will never or they may not accept recommendations that are advanced by the ANC, if we talk the political parties. But we are not here as political parties. You know, last time when she was debating the issue of industrialization, I wanted to say to her, if she can look at the elements of industrialization and look at the mandate of the department and see whether those two don't go hand to hand, she will really realize that it's about industrialization. Industrialization, if you talk about jobs and whatever, that is industrialization. In fact, what I must tell you, that's why I'm saying that she's confusing things here. It is for those reasons that we see people losing jobs, and then we come up with strategies that will help them save those jobs. So the policies, the department may fail as a department, but we are on the right track. Let's wait and see, and let's implement this, and she'll be one of those that will be monitoring the implementation. Thank you, Chair. Let's close.
Chairperson, I've raised my hand.
I also have my hand. Please recognize me. Thank you.
Honorable Maotwe, I'm saying come in.
Oh, I didn't hear you, Chair. Sorry. Chair, I don't know what Honorable Gumede is saying. Why is he responding to me? And he always call against us doing that. Because now I'm also tempted to respond to him. I'm responding to the document in front of me. And this document is informed by the presentation that was done by the department. This document doesn't fall from the air. We were all here when the department was presenting. You can even go back and read that presentation by the department. All I'm trying to illustrate here is to say there are gaps in this report. And the first thing that I did was to object, or rather reject this report. And I had to give reasons why I'm rejecting. And I thought that, Honorable Chairperson, you will protect me in that way to say, let's not, because now he's opening a debate. I'm tempted now to debate, Chairperson. Secondly, the issue of calling parties, it's you who always tell us we are here as committee members, not wearing the EFF cap. I can wear the EFF cap anyway, any time I want. Actually, I want to wear it every time. But I cannot be judged on my inputs as EFF. You, Chairperson, you always say that to us. Even when you're calling now to say, can I hear other people, EFF, ACDP and all that? I was not happy with that because that is not how you taught us yourself. But today you are introducing that. And that is why you see Honorable Gumede moving very quickly to say, as the EFF will not support. As the EFF will support everything that talks about improving the lives of our people. And when we see that this thing does not and will not, there's no way we can agree to it. This report does not say anything about industrialization, which if you industrialize, you are guaranteed that you're going to have a permanent secured jobs. It does not speak to that. Now, is it wrong for me to highlight it that it does not speak like that? Why must I be labeled that I'm speaking like that because I'm EFF? I think it's very wrong, and I think Honorable Gumede must withdraw. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, Honorable Chabalala was.
Yeah, you are the last one. You are last one, Honorable Chabalala. Honorable Kashalia.
Chairperson, can I speak first, Piri?
Okay, Honorable Kashalia, Piri, and Shabalala.
Thank you, Chair. I just wish to record that we will reserve our rights on the adoption of this report, as I've said, on the basis of the input that I have given and sent to the Secretary for inclusion in the minutes. Further, I will furnish a report detailing our position. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kashalia. Honorable Piri.
Thanks, Chair. My observation and the roles that we must play here today is to adopt the budget vote. And what is more critical into this document is the observation of the portfolio committee and the recommendation. And I'll want to say, Chair, as a member of this committee, I agree with the observation of the committee because all these issues that have been raised, it's issues that we are raising as members of portfolio committee when the department and SOEs comes and present to us. Secondly, as the committee, this recommendation as they are, it's an instrument that will also assist us to play an oversight to the department and the SOEs. Maybe if all of us we could understand this recommendation, that these are recommendations for us, so that when we play an oversight, we are saying we are going to follow recommendation 1, 2, 3 until to the last, and we play our part. Chairperson, allow me to move for the adoptions to second this adoption. As much as yourself also, we must no longer open a discussion but move and record those who are saying they are objecting the budget vote. On 7.11, Chair, as the Secretariat was reading, there's an omission. He read and also put it that at the end of South African Express, there must be, those issues must be resolved. But in terms of the report that he has sent, it's not written. I wanted him to include the word resolved at the end before comma. Therefore, Chair, allow us and allow everybody who have registered the Honorable Kachalia's issues based on the previous regime. Because Kachalia is talking about the previous regime, is not talking about the democracy. It is fine, and he's also playing with words. I thought you have agreed. I agreed with you when you started to say Honorable Kachalia. Actually, he's agreeing with the recommendations and observation. It's just he wanted to put his own special words. It's not disagreeing. Actually, he's agreeing. It's just that he wants to put it in his own fashion. And also don't want the word to for us to empower black majority of South Africans. But Chair, my point is that
please finish up because you are repeating yourself now.
Yes, I move for adoption or second for the adoption of the budget vote. Thanks.
Honorable members, Honorable Kasharia was not referring to the old apartheid regime. He was referring to the 5th Parliament. I heard him very well on that one. And please, Honorable, there is only one person that I will allow to speak now. Is the last person. I've already noted more than once all of you, and Honorable Shabalala, you are the last person to speak.
Chair, I'm coming with a different thing. Maybe when we are done with this.
No, we are not. We don't have a different thing. We are on the adoption, and the report has been adopted. We don't have anything different on the agenda. Honorable
No,
Shabalala.
but I'm saying after this, you're going to close. Can I speak
Yes,
before you
I am
close?
going to do that. Honorable Shabalala.
All right, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think you are in order, Chair, per the procedure of adopting a report of the Portfolio Committee. Honourable members have raised objection, and honourable members have seconded and supported the report. So in this instance, Chairperson, I think I'm covered. The report has been fairly seconded for adoption. I thank you.
Honorable members, all objection are recorded. And Honorable Kashalia has said this input is going to be included on the minutes. And the report has been adopted. Thank you very much.
Chairperson,
Thank you so much.
Chairperson, you are unfair.
Meeting is adjourned, honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Good night.
That night to you, Magaka.
Sharp mouth, sleep well.
Can the host close this meeting?
Aye, but say this, Chairperson.
Voluntarily so. You can leave voluntarily so, mouth. Bye-bye.
They are not leaving.
Then Chabalala. Sis Loli?
Yes, please go.
How are you?
All right, mfethu ngilalele.
Ulalele ne?
Ngilalele mfethu. Zingami tomorrow.
Yeah, was adopted tomorrow.
Yeah, soon after a joint meeting.
After the joint meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's fine. Yeah, let me work on this report tomorrow indeed, 2 men.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, sharp.
Okay, otherwise get hambe kahle.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye bye, Mampiri.
Sharp.
Sharp, good luck.